In this video, I will be analysing a forwards roll executed by an experienced gymnast and a forwards roll executed by me by applying the biomechanical principles of force summation, angular momentum, rotational inertia, Newton's first and second laws. I will also be applying my knowledge of functional anatomy to this skill. There are three basic phases of the forwards roll. The first phase is the preparation phase. Start from a standing position, crouch down, bend knees and lift bottom to raise cog. Place hands shoulder wide apart and hands facing forward. Tuck chin to chest and place the back of head onto the floor. The next phase is the execution phase, where you push off the floor with your legs and rotate over your head onto your back. The roll over the spine starts at the back of the neck, not the forehead, and is done progressively one vertebrae at a time. In the recovery phase or follow through, you press your feet onto the floor and whip your arms forward to stand up. Now let's take a closer look at my forwards roll. My biggest strength is my preparation to execution phase because I tuck my body tightly and roll over my spine in a smooth way. This was not easy for me because I am tall. At the beginning my body was a bit loose and flopped onto the floor instead of rolling in a controlled way. But eventually I was able to keep my body in a tighter shape to help me roll better and to create and maintain momentum. I achieved this through visualization and practice. The biomechanical principles that apply are angular momentum, rotational inertia, and Newton's first and second laws. Momentum equals mass times velocity or speed. The basic principle of angular momentum says the bigger you are, mass, and how quickly you are moving, speed, will determine your momentum. Inertia. Inertia is the body's resistance to change. Newton's first and second laws. According to Newton's first law, an object, in this case a gymnast, will stay at rest until acted upon by a force, that is until he tells his muscles to contract and move his body. According to Newton's second law, the acceleration of an object is dependent on the amount of force acted upon it. Basically, the more force he can generate with his muscles, the faster he will move. So putting these biomechanical principles together, when an object rotates, it has angular momentum. When rotation occurs, inertia is not only affected by the mass of the object, but also by the distribution of that mass in relation to the axis of rotation. So, such things as whether your legs are together or your arms are tucked in close to your body will affect the speed of your rotation. The second biomechanical principle that applies is force summation. The biomechanical principle of force summation is very important. Force summation is basically the idea that the more body parts that are involved in completing a movement, the greater the force that can potentially be generated. Force summation requires the athlete to use as many muscles and joints as possible. Use them in the correct sequence. Bigger muscles before smaller muscles, because bigger muscles generate more momentum. Use the muscles in the correct timing, the kinetic chain, and extend the muscles and joints through the full range of motion. In my preparation phase, I had the correct flexion of multiple joints, from my knee bending down, my hip leaning forwards, my spine curving forward, and my neck tucked over my chin. One joint involved in the preparation to execution phase of my forwards roll is the spine or vertebral column, which can be divided into 5 sections: cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacrum, and coccyx, which contain cartilage discs between vertebrae to act as shock absorbers. The lumbar vertebrae are the largest and allow for the biggest range of movement, such as bending forwards and backwards and flexibility. The lumbar allows for extension and flexion. Back flexion is caused by the abdominal muscles. Agonist muscles contract and shorten, while antagonist muscles relax and lengthen. But as we know, muscles work in pairs. When I bend my spine in the preparation to execution phase of the forwards roll, the agonist muscles are the front muscles, with the best known one, the rectus abdominis, which is the muscle you see when you have a six-pack. This muscle runs from the bottom of the ribs down into the front of the pelvis. There are other abdominal muscles such as the transversus abdominis and the external and internal obliques. And the antagonist muscles are the muscles of the... Of course, there are many more abdominal, pelvic, and leg muscles involved in a forwards roll. There are also many more joints involved. Using many muscles and joints in the correct sequence, bigger before smaller, and extending them through a full range of motion, is force summation. My biggest weakness. I'm quite tall, so I needed to generate and maintain momentum in the execution phase to roll up onto my feet and stand up without using my hands to push up off the floor during the recovery phase. Because I did not have enough angular momentum, inertia was a factor and slowed me down in my rotation, and because I did not use my muscles in the correct timing, and I did not extend my muscles and joints through the full range of motion, which is force summation, my recovery phase was poor. One joint involved in the recovery phase of the forwards roll is the knee joint. The knee joint is a hinge joint, which is a common class of synovial joint. A synovial joint is formed between two or more bones that can only move along one axis to either flex or extend. The bones connected to the knee joint are the femur or thigh bone above the knee joint, the patella, which is the kneecap, the tibia or shin bone, which is below the knee joint, and the fibula, which is the thin bone in the lower leg. Secondly, muscles work in pairs. Agonist muscles contract while antagonist muscles relax and lengthen. You will see that in the preparation phase I bend my knees, which is knee flexion. The agonist muscle is the hamstring, and it contracts because it is doing all the work. It is the prime mover. On the other hand, the quadriceps are the antagonist muscles. They relax and the muscles lengthen. Notice though how in the execution phase there is knee extension, where the gymnast increases the angle of his knee, extending as he pushes up and stands up. The agonist is the quadriceps and the antagonist is the hamstring. To improve my forwards roll, I need to complete the roll by rotating into a standing position in the recovery phase. Firstly, I need to extend my spine and knees by extending my muscles and joints through a full range of motion, force summation, so that I have the power and thrust to propel my legs and then my body upwards into the standing position. Just like how the professional is doing here. Also, because I am quite tall and rotation of the body is affected by mass of an object, which is me, I will have a better distribution of my mass in relation to the axis of rotation. It will also make me more stable and therefore able to maintain my momentum. Then I can open and extend my limbs away from my axis of rotation by throwing my feet upwards, planting them on the mat, and thrusting my arms forward to assist me to stand up and complete the recovery phase. I do this so that I do not continue to rotate, but rather to uncurl my body and use my legs and arms to assist me to spring onto my feet. The analysis of my Fowards roll demonstrates how the biomechanical principles of momentum, inertia, and Newton's first and second laws and force summation work together with the anatomy of the body. More specifically, the spine and the knee joint to help me execute and improve my Fowards roll. Understanding the biomechanical principles required to execute a Fowards roll, together with breaking the Fowards roll down into preparation, execution, and follow-through phases, and practice helped me to improve my execution.